So Bennie Fowler, when I met him up in Denver, was wearing a name tag that said obviously Bennie Fowler, and he walked up and introduced himself, and I'm like, wait, like the receiver for the Broncos? And I am in Colorado, so that's obviously like those are holy words for us. So Benny, I brought just a few things that from my viewing area. Obviously, as an Anderson, my daughter wanted a jersey with her name on it, which was a big deal. Um, and then this was the rally towel from the very Super Bowl that you participated in. And this was the rally towel of Peyton Manning's first game as a Bronco, and which turned out very well for me and for you. So anyway, I wanted you to know that I wasn't joking when I said we're big Bronco fans here. So, but yeah, so I got to meet Benny, and we talked for just a few minutes, and what I heard was something that always catches my ears is when people are talking about bigger vision, bigger decisions in life, how those decisions are shaped by faith and those things. And so just I don't know. After just talking with Benny for a few minutes, we I just asked him, would you ever tell this a little more broadly, and would you talk a little bit more broadly because you have such there were just a couple things that really stuck out to me. So with that, I welcome number one in your hearts, number 16 in your program, Bennie Fowler, with us. And Benny, just share a little bit about these guys. Like, obviously, you've been playing in the NFL. Let's back up a little bit to little Bennie Fowler and tell us just about growing up and what that was like for you. And then we'll come to the NFL part.
Yeah, growing up for me was awesome. I appreciate the introduction, and it's always good to see the fact that you are such a huge Broncos fan, and I love seeing that Super Bowl 50 towel. As you can see, I still have the Lombardi right here in the corner. So,
Don't need to brag, Benny. I could have gotten a party too, I'm sure.
but no, I do appreciate it. But growing up for me, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. Both of my parents played a huge role in my life. I went to Detroit Country Day, which is one of the best high schools out there in Michigan, but also I think, in the country, we graduate 100%. We send a lot of people to the Ivy League, and then a lot of people play sports there. Shane Battier, Chris Webber, they went to my high school. Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, Robin Williams, they all went to my high school. So it's a performing and creative arts high school, but also a sports high school, and obviously academics. So that's where I grew up. And then I decided to go on to play my college ball at Michigan State. Now I wasn't necessarily a football player. I wanted to be an NBA basketball player. Actually, every NFL game that I've ever played in, I've actually worn NBA socks. So, and I still wear NBA socks because that's how much I actually love the game of basketball. But football came calling my junior year in high school, and thanks to my mom, actually, who said, you should probably go use your speed somewhere else, because I wasn't getting any basketball scholarship offers. So she was like, you should go use your speed somewhere else. And that led me to Michigan State, where we went on to, win a lot of games. I won 46 games in college and was able to play with guys like Kirk Cousins, Le'Veon Bell. We won the Rose Bowl. We hadn't won the Rose Bowl in 26 years as a school and as a program. And, we were able to do that. That was one of the goals that we set out to do. Won a couple Big Ten championships at Michigan State. So, that's like, kind of fast in terms of how I grew up. But, grew up with my mom. My mom was a lawyer and practiced law in Detroit, Michigan, real estate law, but also was the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools. My dad was an executive at Ford Motor Company, vice president of global quality and manufacturing at Ford for 10 years. He was the COO of Jaguar and Land Rover. He was living over in London for a little bit. So, both of my parents really laid the foundation in terms of business and also performing just at a high level, but also never missing a game. So I think it's super important, the role that they played in my life.
Mm. And you've got brothers and sisters too that are no slouches themselves.
Yeah, I'm the oldest. Yep, I'm the oldest of four. And my brother Chris is now an assistant coach at Northern Arizona University. My sister Taylor is a basketball player at Barry University in Florida. And my other sister Madison, who is the youngest, who just is now a freshman in college, is now playing volleyball at Florida Southern. So 4 athletes, 4 scholarships right there.
Wow. That's why your dad could afford the Jaguars, because he didn't have to pay college tuition right there, huh?
Absolutely.
Inside deal. Um, no, it was interesting talking to you just about your dad's role in shaping your life, and that your mom also, she had her own professional career at a really high level, and so each of them understood excellence and effort and consistency. And I know you had said that that had played very heavily into your life. So when you come out of college, and even after all of that success, you're an undrafted free agent that ends up signing with the Broncos. And so in those moments, like obviously you had earned your stripes, and now, you know, the phone isn't ringing, but you're surrounded by your family. And what do you remember from that period, that about, hey, this is how we're going to hunker down as a family. This is what we're going to choose to believe. This is how we're not going to get discouraged. Share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my dad played an important role. My parents played an important role, but that situation was very tough for me. You know, especially after winning all those games at Michigan State, my junior and senior year, leading the team in receiving. You know, you think you go 13-1, you win the Rose Bowl, you finish second in the country, right behind Florida State, who won the national championship. You think a lot of guys are going to get drafted on that team, and I thought I was going to get drafted on that team. We only had one player actually get drafted on that team, so. You know, sitting around on draft day, my projections was rounds 4 through 7. So it gets to round 5 or 6, and I'm getting some calls from teams, but none of them have pulled the trigger. And you know, that was tough when we got to the last pick of the draft, and my phone hadn't really rang to say, hey, you know, we want you to be a part of this team. And it was a tough moment and a tough situation. And I remember my dad saying to me right then and there are plenty of stories of undrafted players. This isn't the end. So that kept me calm in that moment. And then we had about 20 teams called for me to be a preferred free agent. Detroit offered me the most money, and they offered me about $20,000 as a signing bonus. Denver was the second team to offer me the second amount of money, most amount of money. They only offered me about $8,000. But I told myself, and then my dad later confirmed that right after I said, I was like, if I go play with Peyton and I make that team, I can play for a long time, because that'll always be on my resume. Mm. And I had been living in Detroit. I had grown up in Detroit, and I hadn't really left home. And it was time for me to leave home and leave my comfort zone and really learn something. And if you look at that roster that I joined, you know, you have Peyton, you have Demaryius Thomas, you have Wes Welker, you have Emmanuel Sanders, then you got guys like DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, all joining that team. So the learning that I was going to be able to get in just 1 week was going to be more than I had ever learned in my whole life. And then, you know, possibly, you know, the Lions fans in here that might be listening to, probably more than what I would have learned in Detroit. So that was a hard, tough decision right there, but I had the support of my family. But sometimes in life, you have to make those tough decisions. And I'm sure everybody on this call has had to make tough decisions. So following your intuition and following your gut to know what's right, especially in a tough moment and situation. Hey, let's look at the facts, and let's not go based off of emotion. Because if I went based off of emotion, I would have thought as a young kid, okay, I'm just going to go where they offer me the most money. But where's the most opportunity to learn and grow? And that was in Denver.
So there wasn't any hard feelings, you as a hometown boy heading out, spurning the Detroit Lions hardy fan base? They didn't have any hard feelings about that?
Well, they don't know anything. The fan base doesn't know anything about that unless I share that story. But
with
no,
you
there shouldn't be.
Now you've shared it, so it's going to be everywhere. But no, your family, like nobody, they were really supportive, just whatever decision you wanted to make.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think my parents always said that, hey, this is your life. You know, my parents wanted me to go to Indiana when I was first coming out of high school because they were one of the first teams to offer me a scholarship. And that's not where I felt in my gut.
Mm.
So, you know, they gave me permission to be my own man and to be my own person. And I think that's one of the most important roles that parents can play, and especially fathers. My dad didn't try to control anything that I was doing in terms of the decisions I would make. He would just always be there to support me.
Well, clearly, according to my rally tells, you made the right call.
Absolutely.
So, um, so walk us through a little bit of the NFL career, because it's been some things that have been great, some things that haven't been great. Give us kind of the timeline of Bennie Fowler.
Yeah, so I joined the Broncos in 2014. I did not make the initial 53-man roster. I was on practice squad that entire year. We lost in the first round of the playoffs to Andrew Luck that year. I made the team my second year. I led the team in preseason. I really dedicated myself that offseason. I actually moved out to LA and trained with a couple of Broncos that took me under their wing, especially really Julius Thomas, to help me become and really show me what it takes to be a pro. That was another thing where I had to step outside of my comfort zone and really go after what I really wanted. So I made the team, the Denver Broncos team, and you know, my career kind of took off on Sunday night back home in Detroit. On Sunday Night Football, the third game of the season, Peyton threw me 4 passes. I caught 4 passes for 50 yards back home in front of 40 people, friends, and family. So that's where I caught my first pass. I caught my last high school pass at Ford Field. I caught my first college pass at Ford Field and my first NFL pass at Ford Field. So it's just crazy that everything comes full circle. So that's where I kind of started taking off, and now became Peyton's third down guy because they were always doubling Demarius and Emmanuel. Fast forward to the Super Bowl. We get down to the end of the game. We're up 12. We're getting ready to go for 2 to put things out of reach. And Peyton says in the huddle, "Hey, I'm coming to you." And I'm like, "Who, me?" And, you know, he hikes the ball and I make my move and I break left and the ball's right there. And I catch it and I do my dance, and it ends up being Peyton Manning's final pass of his career, the last pass of his career. And, you know, it's one of the best moments of my life. I don't know about his. He's had plenty of moments, but it's one of the best moments of my life. And, you know, my parents were actually sitting in that end zone. My dad bought his own seats, and my stepmom and my sisters were sitting in that end zone. So they were right there. And it was a great moment to share with my family and bring them on the field. Played 2 more years with the Broncos, had my best year in 2017, you know, had about 30 catches, 400 yards and a couple touchdowns, and had my best year. And that's where I went to Chicago, signed with Chicago in free agency. And that's where I lost my way a little bit. And maybe, you know, faith is, you know, something I put into question as I was sharing with you when we first met, is that, you know, I thought I needed all these supplements and tricks and hacks to really just move myself to the next level. And my mom had mentioned, it's like, you know, you just need to pray and continue to keep your faith. And I was like, no, Mom, I have this all figured out now. And at the end of that training camp is when I got cut for the first time. And I was embarrassed. I was sad. You know, I had just moved. I just come off my best season. I'm now living in Chicago. My mom's already living there. Everything seemed to be going like this. And I lost my way. And, you know, that was just a tough moment for me. And when you think about tough moments in life, you know, how do you respond? That's how do top performers respond? How do top business owners respond? Top fathers, mothers, whatever it may be, how do they respond in tough situations? And that was a tough moment for me for those 3 to 4 weeks. Like, what am I going to do? And that's when I decided to write my book, Silver Spoon, The Imperfect Guide to Success, which led me to life coaching certification, leadership coaching certification, and coaching executives. But after that, the Patriots called me. And even though we can't say that name on this because it's being recorded, the Patriots called me, and Bill Belichick and the Patriots signed me. Now, I only played there for 1 week because they traded for Josh Gordon and they released me. But I played there for 1 week, and when I got released from them, I didn't take it as hard because, number one, when there are tough things that happen to you, you have to look at all the things that actually went well, or what are the successes right there. Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, signed me, number one. One of the reasons why he signed me is because he called Peyton, and Peyton vouched for me and had nothing but good things to say about me, number two. So that's what I really took away from that. And then playing with Tom Brady for a week, I think that was one of an awesome thing. And it's a resume builder for me when I do have conversations. And then I get signed by the New York Giants the next week, and I play there for 2 years and play with Eli. And then last year, COVID hits, 2020. Everybody was affected by COVID, and free agency had hit, and the world shuts down. So I don't know if I'm going to play anymore. So I'm starting to sign clients, and I'm working with some entrepreneurs. And Drew Brees comes out to Denver, Colorado to work out with Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel invites me. We run about 3 routes, and Drew says, "Who are you with?" He's like, "I'm not with anybody right now. You know, teams can't sign anybody, can't fly us out. They can't do physicals." He calls Sean Payton that day, and the New Orleans Saints signed me the next day. So God works in mysterious ways. And, you know, always in tough situations, I trust in him. And I think, you know, that's my career so far. But even in this moment right now, James, as we were talking a couple of weeks ago, I was just with San Francisco. A couple tight ends got hurt, and then they released me. Except this time, it doesn't feel like the whole weight of the world is on my shoulders, because I'm actually looking at the vision for my life, and I don't have my identity so wrapped up in football that I can't move. I can't have great conversations. I can't go out and meet people. No, I'm here in the present moment, and I'm trusting.
And you've learned to listen to your mom, which is just
Yep.
good. So, you know, obviously a huge part of your journey has been about relationships. And so talk about kind of the friendships that were built inside, you know, the locker room, where you have people of really, you know, notable stature like Emmanuel Sanders that's saying, "Come out and, you know, catch some balls with me," or Peyton Manning that's saying, "Yeah, I know Benny, and he's not just a great athlete, but he has a hard work ethic, and he's a leader." How were those relationships formed in the locker room that really obviously came to be really valuable to you later?
Relationships is the real work that needs to be done in life. And without relationships, nothing can get done. In business, teams are what drive everything. You know, being an entrepreneur, you need to surround yourself with the right people. So being in the NFL is no different. And that's why I'm able to transfer so many things in terms of leadership development and working with execs on executive presence or building teams, because it's the same principles, and it's communication, except it's done on a high level. And we actually have a lot of scrutiny when it comes to our team success. So we have to be at our best on Sundays, or we're going to hear from you guys. So I think it's super important. But the way I've always built relationships is always trying to find common ground. And it's not always going to be football. What do these people like to do outside of sports? Who are they really? Asking them questions, actually being very curious about who these people are. Having conversations with Peyton, he's one of the best storytellers of all time. And I would just ask him about certain things. I remember one time I was just waiting in the parking lot my rookie year, and just waiting for the team bus to take us back to the training camp hotel. And he pulls up in his car, and he gives me and a friend a ride. And, you know, that's a real leader right there, because he knows everybody on the team matters. Or the fact that Peyton would have lunch with different people. And I'm not talking about the training staff or players. I'm talking about the people who clean the bathrooms. I'm talking, you know, giving bonuses to the people in the kitchen, because if we're going to win a Super Bowl, everybody has a role. And if the cook isn't giving their best effort because they don't feel loved or wanted, then we're not going to get good food, which fuels our body to go out there and practice and play at a high level. So that's one of the things that I learned about an NFL locker room, and that I'm always going to continue to carry, is that we're all, at the end of the day, regardless of what you do, regardless of what I do, we're people. And I don't just look at myself as a football player that I'm higher than anyone else. And that's what I learned from Peyton, Emmanuel, Wes Welker, Demaryius Thomas. And my most proud possessions are the jerseys and the messages that they leave on my jersey, because I know that I'm a good person. I can take those with me forever. I have Peyton's last ever regular season jersey, and the message on there means more than the pass, or Odell Beckham. The message that he left on my jersey on what type of person I am, that means something. Or Eli, or Saquon. These guys, they'll reach out to me. When I got cut in New York twice in the same season because of roster things, and they would just bring me back. But the first time I got cut, Eli Manning left me a 2-minute voicemail because he was like, "You don't deserve this, and you work too hard, and this is the type of person you are, and if you ever need anything." Eli Manning sees people cut all the time. So it's all about, relationships, and it's always going to work in life, and everything is going to be about relationships.
Well, that's certainly the DNA of what we believe here, and that I think it's always good to build the friendships before you need them, right? And I love, one guy said to me, imagine if more guys invested in friendships before life's crisis was on their door. And I thought, boy, that is such a good thing, because it's in that moment we realize we need them. But oftentimes at that point, we've been too busy to build them. And so I think, building and investing in those relationships as you go is obviously a huge part of it. So right now, the other thing that you and I talked about that really caught my ear was that right now you're not with any team, so you're a free agent. And you said, I feel like I've still got football to play, but there's also life beyond football. And I thought it was really interesting that you have a very clear vision for still contributing this year, this season, with a team and a locker room and leadership, but that also you understand that football is not your life. So, you've moved into an area as you've kind of looked, towards the next chapter of your life that really is around life coaching and leadership and business development and those things that take all those principles that you learned in the NFL, and that became a big part of who you are. And so you talk a lot about things about the championship mindset and the discipline of those things. But tell me about the link between Bennie in the NFL and Bennie who's now investing in other people's lives.
I think it's the same person. I'm taking that same person who was building those relationships in those locker rooms, and I'm bringing that into business and joining NCS and coming to that group. That was a locker room right there. That was sharing stories. That was meeting people. That was shaking hands. That was finding common ground. That was building rapport. So I'm literally doing the same thing. And that's what I go into companies and do. Or when I'm working with people one-on-one, it's like, what do you really want out of your life? What is that clear vision? If I'm doing mission, vision, strategy with my business partner, and we're doing that with a company, we're bringing in the same principles. Except in sports, it's just super clear. Super Bowl, you want to win the division, and then you have to take it 1 week at a time. And then, we follow the same structure throughout the week. Wednesdays are the same, Thursdays are the same, Fridays are the same, Saturdays. Sunday, we try to go out, perform. We get feedback on Monday. We take Tuesday off, and then we go back after it. But that mindset, that discipline, that's the key in terms of when I do work with people, because they understand that. They understand their business. They know what they have to do. But what are the limiting beliefs? What's that imposter syndrome? And that's something that I even had to get over myself when it came to me going out to do business or to write a book and put my face on the cover of a book. It's like, who am I to share this message, but who am I not to share that message? Everybody on this call is in a leadership role of some form or fashion. And CEO doesn't mean leader. Like, CEO is a leadership title, but there are so many different leadership titles, especially father, and just leading yourself every single day. So, I'm literally using the same principles, except I'm just applying them to business. And I have a business background, getting my economics degree at Michigan State, but then also seeing my dad as a high-level executive at Ford. We do some work together. It's the same principles. And we actually talk about it on my podcast. There are so many similarities in terms of business and in sports.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were able to be with us I watched week one and I noted all the receivers that got hurt and wondered if that meant you were going to be if you were going to not be able to join us. So I'm hopeful that you'll get picked up to contribute in a lot of ways, but I'm hopeful that you're going to still be available, next week to be with us in Beaver Creek. So one thing you said that I thought was interesting is you said they taught me how to be a pro.
Mm.
What does that mean?
Being a pro has probably prolonged my career 4 years. That's why teams sign me, because being a pro means they don't have to worry about you. The general manager doesn't have to worry about you. The owner doesn't have to worry about you. The coaches don't have to worry about you. When I signed with the New York Giants after the Patriots, I was there for 1 week and I started on Monday Night Football the next week. I had learned the entire playbook in 1 week. Started on Monday Night Football and played 65 plays and had no mental errors. That's being a pro. Not getting in trouble. Never been in trouble. Keeping my body clean and doing the right things. Being on time. Never been late to a meeting in my NFL career or in college. Never been late to a meeting. Being on time. Being respectful. Doing my job. That's being a pro. And that's what I try to give back to the younger guys and try to lay that foundation and lay that example. When I would walk into the Broncos facility, Peyton's car had already been there. It's in the same spot every single time because he's always the first one there. That's being a pro.
Just so you know, my car is always in the same spot.
Because it says CEO.
Because I get here before it. Well, actually, it's because there's no one in my building that is working live except for me. Um, but it was super fun when I was pulling some photos and stuff to use in announcing several of these things, and it's fun just to. There's just a lot of great photos of you catching footballs against teams I really dislike, and so that was particularly enjoyable to me. But um, a big part of leadership is what you do when someone's not watching. So it'd be the things that are not in those photos. It would be the things that are not being broadcast on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. Um, and I think for you, a lot of that, you've talked about just being a pro, being someone they can count on, they never have to worry about. But then there's also what happens, February through August, which is a vision for the future. And as you think about that in relation to football and in relation to the other work you're doing with consulting and just growing people, really is what you're doing. You're growing people so that people can grow companies. Um, how do you relate that February to August work that gets put in that you did for the NFL to what happens in life and business in the off season?
Yeah, that's where you make the team. You make the team in February in February and August, February through August. That's when you make the team. That's where you really lay down the foundation, and that's where you get in your best work. But that's also where you have that work-life balance piece. But what is the vision for your upcoming season? When I moved to LA for that first time, I had to have a vision of making the team. When I first came into the NFL, my mindset was to at least I want to at least make the practice squad. What type of goal is that? So if we're lacking motivation, if we're walking around with a 3 or a 4, our energy is low, we're not going after anything that's very meaningful. And when I first came into the NFL, I was looking for the low-hanging fruit. Now, low-hanging fruit in business sometimes is very good. But when you're trying to make a team where it's only 53 spots, you have to be shooting to be a starter or a Pro Bowler or a Hall of Famer. Peyton wasn't trying to go out there and just be a good quarterback. He was trying to be the best of all time. So between February and August, that's where I was laying the vision of like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I need to do? What do I want? And then what do I need to do? What are the action steps that I need to take place? I need to be working out 4 times a week. I need to understand how my body handles certain foods, how I'm going to recover. And then how many passes do I need to catch a week? Because the guys, the spots that I'm trying to take, these guys have already played in the NFL. They already have caught hundreds of passes because, first of all, they've played more games and they're older than me. So how do I make up the curve? And I really believe in the quote Abraham Maslow said, what one can be, one must be. And our potential's up here and I was playing down here. So how do I close that gap? Because the regret, anxiety, and depression, that's where it lives in between this gap. So how do I close that gap? And that's what you have to do between February and August. And you see Tom Brady at 44, the way he's playing and the way he's looking, his off season is taking care of all that. But it's the sacrifices, it's the discipline, it's understanding what's most important right now. There are certain sacrifices you have to make. If I think about my dad and him progressing from plant manager all the way to the vice president of Ford, there were certain things that needed to be done. He had to move to London for 4 years and he had to move with my stepmom and my sisters. They moved over there while my brother and I were here, but he had to do that. You have to make that type of sacrifice if you really want to get to the top level. And he wanted to be the CEO of Ford, and he just came short of that. But you have to be trying to reach something. And, if I think about what I'm doing now, what gets me excited and what gets me, up every morning is I want to help people live and lead into their full potential. Sometimes we're playing small, and it might not be in business. It could be in life we're playing small. We could be avoiding home. We could be avoiding certain relationships. We could be avoiding certain things. How do we step into that growth?
So what you're saying is it's not an accident, and I have very little chance of making the NFL, is what you're saying. Hold on.
If you want to,
Never mind. You let him go. All right. Well, that ruined my day. I think there are two kinds of leaders. Benny, there are people who are really good leaders up front with vision. And then I think there's a leader that helps people see the best version of themselves. And I think there are those kinds of friends as well. I think there are friends that are always fun to be with and easy to be with and life-giving to be with. And then there are friends that will always help you see the best version of yourself. As you look into leadership coaching and the things that you've learned through your football career, what are the most important aspects of helping someone be the best version of themselves and see the best version of themselves?
I would say transparent. They got to be transparent communicators. Bill Belichick, Sean Payton, they tell it like it is, but they don't beat you up about it. But, if I think about Sean Payton, when I signed with New Orleans, the first thing he said, he's like, "You're one of Drew's guys. We're going to see what you got. But I've watched the tape and you're a B+ special teams player. I need you to be an A+ special teams player for you to make this team. And then I'll try to get you in on offense. This is how the salary cap looks. These are the guys who are getting the ball." And I was like, fine, that is okay with me. I would run through a wall for Sean Payton because of how honest and transparent he was. He didn't say anything like, you work really hard, you got a chance to make this team. Or when sometimes you see business owners, they sugarcoat things with employees and say, hey, you might have a real chance to move up within this company. And really in their mind, they don't think or see that at all. But the employee will end up finding that out. So I think transparent communication and then inspiring hope. One of the best things, one of the number one leadership tips and qualities is that leaders have to be able to inspire hope. That drives 67%. They said there's actually studies out there that say if a leader doesn't inspire hope, that their team will be 1% engaged. And the hope is actually, the future will be better than what's going on right now. But people have to do that for themselves. You have to have hope. You have to inspire hope. You have to have an optimistic team, an optimistic view, especially when things are going wrong. I think Peyton was really good at that. We won 8 straight and then we lost 2 in a row. And it's like, all right, let's take a step back. What are we doing well? What do we need to do better? And then now what are we going to do about it? And then change some certain things up, add certain pieces and take certain pieces away. But optimism and then transparent communication. And transparent communication is number one because that's the hardest thing to do. It's because, people are so sensitive. But if you have conversations the right way, or if you learn how to have conversations the right way, and the other person can receive feedback, which the standard is already set in the NFL that it's going to be done like that, then communication is going to drive performance. That's going to drive team culture. That's going to build so many different things. So I would say communication and optimism are the two things that I think are very important in terms of leadership.
I got a note in the chat from a guy that I really don't like, and so he'll all me if I don't ask his question. But my buddy Jordan asked, "What does off season look like for marketplace leaders?"
For marketplace leaders, what does the off season look like?
Yeah, what is off season like? Where, like, how do they train and be pros when it's not on TV?
I would say they always have to step into personal growth. You have to look at your leadership style and what you're doing well. And then what are you getting better at? But I think, that's why I come in and I do a 360 feedback with leaders. It's because we have to see, and you have to find out like what you're actually not good at. And then that's what you work on in the off season. When we have exit interviews, the coach always says, hey, you need to get better at catching in routes, or you need to get better at this. And then that's what you work on between February and August. So you have that, you actually close that gap. But you have to ask or try to figure out where you are as a leader or where these leaders are. And then how do you close that gap? What are the 2 steps that you need to take in the next couple months? But we always come out, you have to have a plan for something.
Well, as I look at your story, I mean, I see some elements that it just seems like there was an optimism and a belief. There was a relentless pursuit, a very specific plan always, and that there was very clear expectations and communications, so you were never left wondering. And there seemed like there were a lot of people that you built friendships with that played into your story. I think that's pretty universal and goes as part of all of us, right? And like you said, it's honest feedback, straight communication, and here's what you need to work on, or if you're going to work for this company, or you're going to be a part of this corporate team or this NFL team, there are going to be some things you have to do. So anyway, I appreciate your candor and I appreciate your willingness to do this. Now for the scariest part, I'm actually going to just open this up. And so guys, obviously a big part of any meeting, in my opinion, is us being able to just talk about what we heard and what kind of snapped at us. So if anyone has it could be a question for Bennie, or it can even just be saying, hey, when I heard this, I realized I'm not doing this, or I should do this, or how it kind of struck you, whatever. Feel free to unmute yourself there, and we'd love to have you interact and engage.
Hey, Benny, two questions for you. One, when you got cut by Chicago and that was a really tough time, your mom had moved out there, how'd you lean into Christ to help get you through that? And the second question is, what do you think of Peyton and Eli on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Dan. I think the way I kind of leaned into Christ, it was just more prayer, and it just, what are you trying to tell me? Where are you leading me? And really just in trusting, and that anytime I've ever been in a bad situation, he's always showed me the way. So continuing to lean in that, and then understanding that, and then never leaving that, because I'm in the same situation now, but my mind and my headspace is totally different because he's never failed me. So I would say that is what I started doing and will never leave me. I've always believed in God and always been religious, but I just feel like I got off path, and that got me back on path. Now, I'm not saying obviously we know that things won't be perfect in life, but I know he's there as long as I'm continuing to pray, continuing to believe. So I would say that is what's different about me now. And then Peyton and Eli on Monday Night Football, I got to get on there with them, because I'm the only one who's caught touchdowns from both of them. So I think it's great, and then you can see what type of guys they are when they're not playing. And I think, they're both hilarious. They're both great storytellers, but the way they see the game is totally different. And nobody can see the game like a Manning. Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes, incredible quarterbacks, but nobody can see the game like a Manning. It's 3 quarterbacks in that family, 2 number 1 picks. It's incredible. So
it's been good fun to get that as an alternative
yeah.
On another ESPN. Guys, who else? Just feel free to, I don't know, something that struck you, something that kind of hit you good or weird or whatever. John?
So Benny, how do you, when you consult with leaders, what do you say to them as it relates to melding their faith with their business? So there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that struggle with how bold they are with the marketplace. And so how can you counsel us as business leaders and owners to bring faith into our businesses and into our relationships with the marketplace? Thank you.
Yeah. I think just being upfront and honest with what you believe in. I think people love transparency and authenticity. And if you lose some people on your team because of your faith, then they're not meant to be on your team. But there are certain people that have certain religious beliefs on each team, in an NFL locker room. And, everybody has their own little groups, but at the end of the day, what are you trying to drive? But as long as you're being authentic and honest, I think everybody has to accept everybody. But you have to live within your faith and your core values. I think that's always important. Your faith and you expressing that. You keeping it on the inside is going to hurt you even more. So I think being authentic and letting that out is super important, and letting everybody know that they can believe in what they want to believe in too.
I think faith is often the why, right? It's why we do what we do the way we do it. And I think that can never be separated from what drives us. So some people have faith in money. So what drives them is this belief that that's the most important thing to them. And my favorite stories are the people who say, we've been given tons of money. We've just decided to treat every employee like family. I have such an incredible, it's a blessing to me to get to watch people run businesses that way. And it's always been a remarkable thing that I've enjoyed as part of this job. So
best businesses are run like that, like a family, building like a family, building teams like a family.
Who else has got a thought or a wager that they'd like to maybe get Benny's perspective on for this week?
I have a question for you. So I'm probably the outlier of the NCS group. I write country music in Nashville for a living. And there are about 15,000 songwriters in town. There are about 200 of us that get to do it professionally at that level. One of the hard things is it's also a very diverse town where most of the industry, probably even in country, isn't Christian. But it's also highly competitive. And so how do you balance it with the NFL and with coaching, with calling people to the highest standard of performance and of excellence, while still letting people know that, showing people grace, I guess, in terms of your faith and your walk and not closing doors, but at the same time calling people to the standard of greatness that's necessary to compete? How do you balance that? What do you say?
That's a really good question, because it really just depends on what they want out of life. Number one, I don't push anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. When I'm coaching people, at the end of the day, it's their business and their life. I'm here to support them. I'm a strategic partner, and I'm here to support them too, because this is what they said they wanted, but I can't do the work for them. So we lay out a clear plan. We get over limiting beliefs. We do a lot of different things one-on-one, but at the end of the day, it's your life. I can't want this for you. I can hope this for you, but I can't do the work. And the way that it's done in the NFL is that there's an off season. That's where there is the balance. But when we're in season, it is full go, because there's only limited opportunities. There's so many limited opportunities. Your career could be over. You never know. So people are always pushing it to the limit. But there's also a fun element in the NFL as well. And, one of the things that I had to realize early on is that I'm still playing a kid's game. It's just in front of a lot of people and I'm getting paid for it now. But, little kids play this game. So I think that's one of the things that I had to understand. But when you're in a competitive market, I think you have to understand and do deep work. Doing deep work, doing meaningful work, doing important work instead of a whole bunch of busy fake work is the way you can actually have that balance. Sometimes when I first became an entrepreneur, I was doing so many things. I was researching things and I was staying up late and trying to figure everything out. And it was a bunch of fake busy work instead of like what really matters right now in the next 90 days. And let's get clear on that. And I actually get a lot more done. I actually have a lot more free time. So sometimes when there's a lot of overwhelm, there's no clarity.
Yeah, Paul's the lead singer of the Rolling Stones, so we had to kind of black out his image just for.
Gonna have to hear some of his music.
Yeah, for safety. Yeah, I love that it's simple and back to basics, and it's a little kid's game. That's how I feel about this job. Like, people are like, what do you do? I'm like, I help men figure out how to be friends again, and like we did when we were boys. And so, who else had a question? I saw somebody pop their hand up.
Yeah, I had a quick question, Benny. Do you have any stories that you want to share of situations where you're coaching people where you help them get focused and they're out of focus and maybe they were difficult to deal with? Anything like that you'd want to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they necessarily. I've never really had a pain in terms of them being difficult to deal with because of the high stakes that I've kind of played with. And I might not be the right coach for everybody. So I always do, we do some discovery calls, we do some strategy calls first to make sure that I am the right fit, because I come at everything with a positive perspective. I do push for performance, but I also push for in a different way. And I push for collaboration and team, and I'm not always, everything's got to be so serious. So if somebody's looking for that, that's not me. I can, my dad's a little bit more of that serious, let's go. How he drove, quality for Ford, but that's not me. So I always try to make sure it's a fit. And that's how, business should be done. And that's how teams are built. Sean Payton would never let anybody in the locker room who's a cancer. He just doesn't do it because the locker room culture is literally too important. And you can see that the culture for the New Orleans Saints is the same every single year. It's a lot of hype. It's a lot of passion. And everybody's always playing hard because he's going to keep that culture the same. And that's how I approach work with other people. If it's just not a fit, it's not a fit. There are a lot of people in this world. There are a lot of coaches, and I might not be the one for everybody. Even though I feel like I do a lot of good work, there is always opportunities for, other people to seek other people out.
Thank you.
Got a couple more minutes. Anybody else? I got one here. Jordan, it's fine if you want to ask two questions. So, hi, Jordan.
Hey, Benny, thanks a bunch for what you're doing. I appreciate your humility. In a lot of these arenas that we work in, you've got a lot of people who are stars and who are, quite frankly, they're their own brand. They're a personality. Their value proposition is who they are and their abilities. When you're coaching, how do you coach to the abilities and the value that they bring, not because of their name and and that kind of, Hollywood stardom that they've developed, but because they actually are somebody who has something to offer?
Mm-hmm. So break down that question for me a little bit more. Like, how do you coach somebody who has
when you go into situations where you've got people that you're coaching who are fairly well known because of their name, and they are, and there's a little bit of hero worship going on in their life, and people follow them because of their name. And essentially, they've got to figure out a way to develop a value proposition for who they are beyond, let's say, that particular job, or maybe it's the NFL. A lot of players who are stepping out of the NFL and trying to be business leaders in some way, shape, or form. Do you have any of those guys? And I'm sorry, I guess I should have said it's more on the sports guys that you've talked to, not necessarily guys in the marketplace.
Yeah, I ask them who are they, and they'll probably list their accomplishments and not tell me actually who they are. It's actually what was done to me and why I actually got into executive and leadership coaching, because that happened to me about 3 years ago. A guy by the name of JP Flom, incredible executive coach out here in Denver, does super well. He asked me who I was, and I had no answer, and I was crying. And, he asked me why I wanted certain goals, and it was all about external. And I had no real answer. And then that mindset shifted. And then he gave me some different perspectives, and he gave me some goals to actually go out there. He helped me with my goals and helped me reach certain things. And that led me to the coaching school that I went to, the leadership certification that I got, what I do now, my approach to so many different things. So that's how I approach it now with celebrities, is because that at the end of the day, that doesn't even matter. And that's what I had to learn and realize, is that at the end of the day, the only people that, get recognized life after football are, the Peytons and the Eli's and Tom Brady's. Everybody else, they're going to forget about you. So what do you want your legacy to really be? And that's what drives me now. My legacy beyond football is, I got 60 more years to live. Football is this much of my life. And I didn't realize it at the time. And I think athletes sometimes struggle with that. So that's the way I come at it with, if I'm coaching, people of higher stature, is that you're no different than the person sitting next to you. You can just catch that football really well.
Yeah. Isn't that what Jesus asked us to? I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Appreciate the question, Jordan, even if it was a very thinly veiled swipe at me about working with celebrities. And now you see why I don't like him. Who else has got a thought, something that struck you? Question for Benny, anything like that?
Hey, Benny, this is Dick, and I'm in Michigan half the year, and I'm a long-suffering Lions fan, but I'll let you go. And I'm just curious. This is just a style question about sharing your faith. I wonder, for you, what was it like? Was it more expressing the confidence you had in Christ in the good work you did and the good habits you did and the good traits you were as a player and as a person? Or was there more explicit, like, let me talk to you about Jesus kind of conversations? Or was it more manifesting the qualities that you're talking about? And because some people are more evangelistic, just about their relationship with Christ and introducing people to Christ, and other people are lifelong, maybe have that. I've been a Christian many, many, many years, and I spend more time thinking about how my relationship with the Lord drives the quality of the work and relationships I have, but I'm not always popping the question every time I talk to someone, hey, let me tell you about Jesus. So how was that for you? Sort of a spectrum of how that in the locker room or just in your life as you go through the pro years?
Yeah, I would say I have more of your approach. I don't just say, hey, let me tell you about Jesus, but anytime I'm going through something tough or something good or is happening in my life, I know it's because of the Lord, and I know it's because of my faith, and I'm not afraid to express that or share that. I'm a big guy on prayer before the game, pray by myself, pray in the end zone. It doesn't, really matter where I'm at. And, I'm one of the only guys, if we go out to a team dinner, I'm saying prayer before the food. That's just how I am. I've always been like that. So, but I'm not a person to pull people aside and and give them a lecture. I kind of it's more of a lead by example and know that everything that I have in my life is something that the Lord gave me. So,
Yeah.
and that's the way I go about it.
I appreciate it because it just occurred to me. And it's not that the other model is wrong. It just depends on how the Lord gifts you to express it to people, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It might
Thank
be
you for being here, brother.
It might be different in different situations, right? I mean, there's a time where you come with the hammer, and sometimes you come with cotton balls. And God, sometimes you got to choose the right thing for the right moment to be that. So, anybody else with a question? All right. Well, Benny only said Patriots 3 times, so only three swear words. So I appreciate that. I also called Peyton and asked him, and he vouched for you. And so it's good to know that it's true. He really does like you. So, well, Benny, my prayer for you is that you're too busy to join me for anything else, because I think God still does have a platform for you. And I love that just very confident faith that you expressed to me when we met. And I also love this idea that you understand that football is not your life. And it's really been a pleasure to talk with you about this, and then even to hear this tonight. And I appreciate you sharing this with my friends. So on behalf of all of us, man, at NCS, I hope your phone starts ringing shortly, and that God continues to provide you with that platform. And but I'm thankful for you, my friend, and thanks for being with us tonight.
Appreciate you guys. Feel free, everybody, just if you guys are on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, and, look forward to continuing these conversations and building this friendship with NCS and you, James. So thank you guys for allowing me to speak with you today.
Yeah, and Benny, if they wanted to follow up and, pursue you in a professional opportunity, where would they find information about what you're doing outside of football?
Yeah, they can go to BennieFowler1.com to learn more information, but really just go to my LinkedIn and they can shoot me a message, and then we can talk from there, get on the phone, get on Zoom, and, just really build a relationship. And, that's, I kind of like to do things organically.
So Bennie Fowler 1, even though you were number 16 here. All right. Well, that's how it is. So, well,
appreciate you guys.
Right there. You were a part of history. Yeah, really appreciate it. Guys, thanks so much for sharing part of your night with us and for welcoming Benny. So with that, gentlemen, have a wonderful night.
See you guys later.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Oh.